So hello and good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming to the Google stand this morning. My name is Sacha van Straten. I'm the head of digital literacy at Trinity School in Croydon. What I'm going to talk to you about for the next 20 minutes or so is using Google Apps for Education across a number of schools where I've deployed it in order to make a change to the learning culture of all the teachers who use it, and also, most importantly, about what does it do in terms of learning outcomes. How do we actually make learning better? So here's a bright idea. Can we get something that is low cost to no cost? Can we get staff over that hurdle that many of them have, where they say, I've been around the block 1,000 times before, I've been at this school 20 years, I've seen technology come and go, you're the latest Flash Harry with a brilliant idea, thank you very much. And what I've done in a number of schools, really, is through the use of Google Apps for Education, I've been able to really get people collaborating, that staff with other staff, which is always for them the kind of unexpected byproduct of this, getting students to collaborate with each other a lot more effectively. And actually, most importantly of all, that it happens with a minimum of fuss. And the other thing that I've discovered repeatedly is that most network managers in schools where I've wanted to do this have initially been resistant. And actually, when it comes down to it, we get this up and running in a couple of days. I've built an entire learning platform in one day. And the more I do it, the faster it becomes. And most importantly of all, it's really easy for staff to take controlled ownership. And best of all, because it's in the cloud, the actual load on your network systems at school, apart from obviously the broadband connection, which is key, is really quite minimal. But let me talk to you very briefly about pedagogy and why it's important. And I keep trying to find a better quotation than this one, but I love it, and I keep coming back to it when I'm doing that initial conversation with staff about why is this worth doing. And why should we be doing it? And it's from Mark Prensky, he who coins the term digital natives. And therefore, you know, people tend to hold Prensky up as the guy who says everything has changed, we should rip up the rule book, we should do things completely differently. But in fact, one thing Mark Prensky said in 2008 was this. He said, teachers resist being taught to use technology, and they should resist it because it's not their responsibility, ultimately, to be able to use it. It's the kids' responsibility. And if you can get over that barrier, actually cool things will happen. And that's been my experience. And I use this at a strategic level to reassure staff that we are not asking them to jump into the unknown, that what they see will be a very clean and easy-to-use interface, that the learning curve is small. I say to people, I can teach you to use Google Apps in less than an hour, and that covers everything. And I can, you know, because it's very intuitive. And I like this quotation from Draw as well, that it doesn't matter what tech you use that counts, but what the learner takes away from it is what really matters. And I think, you know, what I'm finding, and I just did this at Trinity at the start of this term, I did a big keynote presentation to all the staff. And rather than me just sort of talking about my experiences and why I think it works, I filmed a whole bunch of the boys at our school at the end of last term. And I just asked them, how do you use technology in school, and how do you use it outside of school? Now, here's the thing. Every boy, from year 6, we take boys in year 6, up to the upper 6th, every single one, when asked, said, well, I am using technology like Google Apps, like the Khan Academy, YouTube, forums, to learn outside of school. And when I say to them, OK, so you're doing this kind of collaborative thing, right? They're, yeah, we're doing it. How often do you do that in school? Not very often, if at all. Would you like to do it in school? Sure, but nobody ever asks me. I found boys, you know, who are age 12 using really advanced compositing in After Effects. They're making these brilliant 3D models. This one chap, Salman, he said, well, actually, I've got boys who commission me for their YouTube channels, and I do all the kind of ID tags for them, and I create these kind of starting blocks. And when I played this video, afterwards, one of the chemistry teachers who teaches Salman came up to me and said, I had no idea this student had these skills. I'm going to get him to do some kind of 3D modeling of DNA. It would be brilliant, and then I can share it with the rest of the school. And I think that's where we should be going. But at a pedagogical level, I think lots of teachers have this fear barrier that stops them making progress. And that's why I think Google Apps is so brilliant, because the learning curve is small and we can get to that point where the magic happens far quicker than with any other tool that I've seen. So if we go social and we connect our learners, what happens? This is you may not be able to see it terribly well, but this is a kind of a screenshot that I did when I deployed Google Apps for Education at Berkhamsted School a couple of years ago. And we had Moodle, and Moodle was not very popular. The staff found it really hard to upload content. You know, if they wanted to change something, they had to download the file, edit it in an Office document, then re-upload it. But with Google Apps for Education, you can do all of that within your browser in real time. And so what I found was in about a month, we went from 70 users a week on Moodle to over 1,000 a day on Google Apps. And the great thing with Google Analytics, particularly if you're in charge of monitoring learning and teaching, is that you can see where the students go. You can see what operating system they are on. You can see what device they are using. You can see where in the world they are. And what I found with this at a strategic level is it means that I could go back to heads of department or individual teachers and say, these pages are really popular. Whatever you're doing there, let's have a conversation about why that page or that site is doing really well. Why are those pages not doing so well? This department isn't engaging as much, perhaps. And so it actually gives me some hard data that I can use to have learning conversations, which I think is really quite important. So here's an interview with Paul. Paul is an advanced skills teacher in English at Trinity School in Brighton. And what we did the year before last was we basically gave him an IT room for a whole year, and he took it over. So he had his Google Docs classroom, and all of his Year 9 teaching with one of his classes happened here. So let me just play this for you. It's quite interesting, his thoughts.
Let's take a poem. I would give the whole class, I would share one poem with the whole class on one document, and they would simultaneously annotate that document using those functions on Google Docs, and they can then comment on one another's comments and reply to one another, and within a very short period of time the students can create a huge amount of work and a huge amount of learning and a huge amount of progress, perhaps far more than they would have done if I'd given them a poem on a piece of paper with a pencil and asked them to pass it around a table, commenting on each other's comments. And because of the very nature of social networking and how used the students are to this kind of way of working electronically, it's almost second nature to them. So it didn't really take very long for the students to cotton on to the idea that you can just click on somebody else's comment and write a comment on someone else's comment, and in doing so, one word within a poem has attached to it an enormous amount of analysis and annotation. And so it's quite a profound difference, I think, in terms of the way the students can access language and access analysis and learn from one another as well. Yeah, it's been quite amazing.
And do you see this then changing the way you think about how teachers might operate pedagogically?
I think definitely. I think when I sit down and plan a lesson in this classroom, in Google Doc classroom, I'm planning it in a different way. I'm thinking about the different documents that I'm going to share with the class over the course of 100 minutes, and whether they're going to be just working in pairs on that document, or whether they're going to be working in fours or as a whole class. And I'm already thinking about the homework tasks that I might be setting them. I think the opportunities it has for changing the way that we plan are enormous.
So that's Paul. And what's interesting for me is that after that year, when we did this sort of trial, what happened was that Year 9 class, their results went up on average by over a grade. Over a grade. And this is something that I've seen repeated over and over again. That actually what happens, at the bottom of the chart, I'm just going to play a video to show actually one of Paul's classes in action. This is his Year 9 class, and basically they're working on a Google Doc. The whole class is sort of basically writing their ideas. He's created slides. And what it means is that everybody can see everybody else's work in real time. So their raw thoughts are captured. And what it means is also, you see, that you can click on the revision history. You can see every piece of additional thinking that every student has done. And I think that this makes really quite a significant difference. So, when I spoke to Paul afterwards, I said, what do you think? And he said, well, I'm pretty certain the only thing I did differently was that these students could have this real-time connection in classroom and see each other's thinking, but they could carry on discussing what they were doing after every lesson. And what I found was that it wasn't just when I set homework, but that the students were logging on at all sorts of times of the day and night, using a whole variety of devices because they wanted to learn, because there was a sense of ownership that they simply hadn't had before now. And I think this is, for me, really one of the sort of biggest benefits that you can get from using Google Apps. Here's an example of a Google site that I've made at Trinity last term, and I'm basically doing a big data project. So I've got all of my first years working on what we call the appliance of computer science. So they've had a term of learning coding, of using Google Apps, of doing all sorts of really interesting things. And what I said was, working in teams, choose a topic from another academic subject you are studying and demonstrate your understanding of it to me by whatever means you care to do. Now, what I did was, you can see here I've got a Google presentation embedded inside my Google site, so all my lesson names are there. So all those sort of, if you like, extraneous bits that you need for your lesson, rather than me having it on a PowerPoint that sits on my documents on my computer that the students will see when I put it up and then it disappears, it's persistent. And it's that persistence that is great. If you're ill, everything we did is captured. If you're not sure, you can come back and look at it. And that is one of the great things. The commenting system on Google Apps is fabulous, because if I'm marking a Google document, I can leave a comment, but the student can then comment on that comment. So we end up having a learning dialogue on a web-based piece of work, which then equally I can open up and I can share with their teachers, I can share with their form tutor, but equally at the click of a button I can say, no, that's private just to me and the student, or private just to me and the class, or actually it's just private to me. And it's that ease of use and that sort of granularity of sharing ideas and sharing what we do that is really so important. So, in terms of why do I think Google Apps works, if we look at the SAMA model, where actually, in the first instance, we do substitution. I'm not going to give you a printed handout. I'm going to give you a Word document that I email to you. Then I might augment that by putting a bit of video in there. But actually what we want is we want to get the students to modifying and redefining what they do, where actually the technology simply becomes an enabling tool. It becomes seamless. It becomes invisible. It doesn't require necessarily even the teacher's input, that the students are driving the learning by themselves. In other experiments I've done using other sort of learning tools, you get stuck somewhere between substitution and augmentation, and lots of people then get fixed at that point. But there's quite a lot of evidence to show that if you can get to that modification and redefinition level, then actually you quite rapidly start to change the learning outcomes, and they get better. What I found at Berkhamsted was that results went up, and Rosie, who's the deputy head of English there, did this trial for me. The results went up incredibly, and we then replicated it not just in an English GCSE class, but we did it with an A-level classical civilization class. We did it across the board, and I've done it in a number of different settings. And for understandable reasons, I think, the results keep on going up. And it's not some magic mumbo-jumbo. It's just when students can connect with each other whenever they want, when they can share ideas, when they can have their learning available to them at the point when they want to engage with it, they will then be actively engaged in your subject far more. So let me just get Rosie up here, and she can explain to you how that worked.
Yeah, I found it extremely useful to get my Year 12 group in particular to work independently. For example, I've been teaching The Great Gatsby this term, and we've done a lot of detailed analysis in class, and then I gave them a whole chapter to analyse independently. I sent them away. I said to the whole class, just go away, add your ideas to chapter 12. I gave them some headings, and they produced an amazing document analysing the whole of chapter 12 with no input from me. I also included some web links, some extra resources, and that has been particularly brilliant for me because we were running out of time, teaching time, to actually cover this text, and what it's proven to me is that I've taught them the skills, they've gone away and implemented them and created something which is as good as anything I could have taught them on that particular chapter.
What we found when we did the trial with Rose's class was that we took 2 Year 11 groups, and at Berkhamsted the teaching Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 is split boys only, girls only. So we took 2 Year 11 girls classes in English with broadly very similar expectations for what grades we thought they would get, and it was quite a mixed bag. The class that used Google Docs all got A stars, way beyond anything we had predicted or that the other available statistical data had predicted. And this is what it does. But let me allow Naomi to give you a student's perspective. She ended up starting a literary magazine called The Ink Spot using Google Sites and Google Docs. It was supposed to be just for Year 11 girls, but then the boys found it and suddenly it became this very big magazine. It's just won a major award last year. It's now gone on to a kind of interactive, fully web-based magazine, and it's great. And I think this shows really well the transformative powers that you can get when you connect your students and allow them to kind of have that collaborative element across everything that they do in school.
Yeah, it has really made a difference because, especially with English, it's really useful to gather information. Like at the moment we've got a To Kill a Mockingbird quotations Google Doc open, and we can all share quotations and things. And although Miss McCall, our English teacher, set it up, it's all sort of student-based, and so it's up to us to do it.
And moving forward, do you see, because it's been left deliberately open by me, so anybody can create a Google website, they can create a Google Doc. Do you see us moving to a stage then where students just start creating their own content and sharing? Are they doing it already, for example?
Definitely. I mean, yeah, they do. I mean, if you go on the learning platform, the school, and there's lots on there. And I mean, definitely all the subjects could use it. I mean, we use it for drama as well. And I mean, you can see all the subjects. I mean, it's so useful to be able to collaborate all the information that you've got, especially for revision purposes and exams.
And do you think, picking up on that point, do you think that this could be used by students as a way to actually feed back to teachers to say, look, as a group, we're not sure about this area of the syllabus?
Yes, definitely. We can already Gmail teachers if we have any requests or problems that we're having with our homework, which is really, really useful, because then you get sort of specific feedback for yourself.
So in effect, because my feeling with the students I teach is that the relationship between teacher and student is changing because of this, that the students are very much getting into the driving seat and being able to say, this is where we'd like to go and explore a topic, or this is how we'd like to learn about a particular area. Did you get that feeling that teachers are open to that way of working?
I think so, yeah. I think it's good that teachers are open to different ways of learning. I mean, in the end it's us learning, not them, isn't it? And yeah, I mean, we're very technological nowadays, so I mean it's good that everything's online now and we can access everything. Yeah, I think it's moving forward.
And I always like that quotation, it's us that do the learning, not the teachers, which is no bad thing. So, just to move swiftly on, I mean, there are lots of skills which we understand, people need to have, and I think it's really quite important that, we tap into this, because the students are already doing it themselves. And I'm going to end with Harry. Harry is one of my Year 6 students, and he's like talking about Twitter, and I'm on a Google stand while we're talking about Twitter. Well, the reason being because Harry started a Twitter feed when he was 8 about Diary of a Wimpy Kid. He has over 1,000 followers.
I discovered Twitter by really my brothers. They were using it, so I decided to have a look at it, and I just found it really, really interesting.
And how old were you when you first started using Twitter?
I was about 8 or 9, so quite young.
And what did you use Twitter for when you started?
Well, I didn't really have any ideas what to do on Twitter, and I didn't really want it just to be about myself, because that would be a bit boring. So I just thought about something, and Diary of a Wimpy Kid came into my mind, and that's what it was about. I made my Twitter account, and then I just started talking about it, and then I got more into it, and I started getting information on the site, and when books were going to be out, and I actually made business cards for it so people could know about it.
How many followers have you got?
About 1,000.
You were saying that you've had some quite high-profile people follow you.
It got really impressive because I had one of the actors from the film follow me. I almost had the author follow me, he tweeted me, and I had the main character from the film tweet me as well. So yeah.
So this is kind of where we're at. And I think if you're looking at doing this, Ian Nan is sitting at the back, and Ian runs a company that helps schools, including me, get Google Apps in. But those questions to ask is, who is in charge? Can we let the students have greater control over the learning? I think with Google Apps you can, and it works, and it's easy. Plus it's free, so if you don't like it, you won't have lost anything, but I can guarantee that will not be the case. So lastly, that's me. I'm hanging around. If you want to chat, please do. Please get in contact with me via Twitter. These slides are available on that link, but I think all of the presentation, including me talking to you, will be available in a few weeks. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of the show.